think AI is gonna cost me my job as a photographer, a videographer, an editor? No. But today I do wanna talk about using AI for photo editing. What's going on? My name's Andrew. You can call me Pooch. I'd like to welcome you to this channel, and I want you to know that I'm really glad you're here. So the buzzwords on the internet right now, specifically for the photography community, are Fujifilm right here, film prices, and of course, AI. I've been talking about AI on TikTok and Instagram for a little bit now, and I've had some really hilarious responses to my thoughts. AI is going to take over the photo industry.
Absolutely not.
No.
Specifically, whether or not AI is going to take over the photography space. The community says no.
No.
Whether or not you think that it's going to take over the industry, I'm not here to debate that, but I have been incredibly interested in what AI can do for me as a photographer. And so I'm proud to say that today's video is sponsored by Skylum, who creates Luminar Neo, which is an AI-based photo editing app. We're gonna dive into it. We're gonna look at some of the features, and I'm gonna talk to you specifically about my view on the role AI can and should play for you as a photographer. Quick note for those of you who've been around for a minute, or this is your first time on this channel, this is our very first ever sponsored post. Luminar's hooking us up with a 10% discount code that I'll share at the end of the video after I go through everything. Just because this is sponsored doesn't mean these are not my own thoughts, my own feelings and opinions on this software. And if I really didn't believe that I could utilize this as a tool, I wouldn't be reviewing it. So with that being said, let's have some fun with AI. So here it is, Luminar Neo. I have photos here from my Iceland trip. These are actually some of the selects that will be going in the book that I'm working on. One of the things that they're really proud of is their AI's ability to understand a scene and interpret that, whether it be by relighting it, swapping out the sky, or just correcting it. And what I want to do first is sky swap. So I think this is a pretty good example here. This really blown out white sky. I shot this on my X100V. I think I had the ND filter up, but again, it was overcast, super cloudy, super bright white light. So let's kind of go ahead and see what Luminar can do. We're going to go over to the edit tab here. It's funny because in Iceland, one moment the sky looks like the most majestic thing you've ever seen, and the next minute there's fog coverage and you can't see anything. So the first thing I want to do is look at sky here. Now I think this is going to be a little bit challenging because the mountain, the outline of it really does not have a super defined line. So the sky kind of just bleeds right into the mountain. So we may see some masking issues that I think we should be able to correct. So first thing, let's go ahead and pick a sky. There's skies that they recommend, but I'm gonna stay away from that because I really don't want, I want to have some input in the AI creation process. These white fluffy clouds look kind of nice. Let's see what it does. Okay, so yeah, you can clearly see here that there is some issues. So let's go ahead and refine that. I'm gonna take this global slider and pull it down. Now, the problem with sky swapping is that it can look unnatural. So we're gonna pick one more sky to see if we can get something a little bit closer. This sky right here. Okay, that actually feels a lot more natural to me. I'm gonna bring the sky a little bit out of focus. I'm gonna add some haze to it to kind of match the hazy day that we had. And I'm gonna bring the brightness up. This is starting to feel a lot more natural to me, and I may even go ahead and pull just a hair of warmth in. Now I feel like this sky goes a lot better with this image. Sky swapping may not be your thing, but I do think it does add a layer of character to an image that may have needed just a little extra I want to play around with the portrait AI options that I have with Luminar. So I'm going to go and scroll all the way down, and now you can see there's a portrait section. Let's go ahead and play around with portrait bokeh first. This image already has some really nice depth of field, but if I wanted to make it feel extra dramatic, all I simply have to do is pull up on this amount here. Now let's see what it does. Okay, did you notice that? It selected my subject and it blurred out the background. Now, if you're having a hard time seeing the difference in Luminar, they have this really great option. Click down here on this little rectangle that's split in half by a line. It actually shows me a before and after. So if you see on the left-hand side, there's a before, and on the right-hand side, there's after, and you can literally just pull it and scrub it across to see the difference. So here's before, and then here's after. Now, it really does blur out that background. If I want to go back to that edit, I can simply go up to edit in the top right hand corner and then go back to my portrait bokeh and see what I've done so far. What I like about this is that I can also change the brightness of my background. So if I want to drop it and make my subject even more pronounced, I can. I can change the color temperature of my background as well, which is kind of cool. So just to check the work of the AI, let's go ahead and zoom in, and you can see that because I had already set up the photo for success, I already had a shallow depth of field, I just wanted something a little bit more dramatic. AI had no problem singling out my subject. Next thing I want to do is I just want to increase some of the brightness in the face without having to go ahead and draw with a brush and mask. All I have to do is click on face. Once I click that, the drop down is face light. Let's go ahead and start to increase that a little bit. And what you can see here is that just a little bit of an adjustment brings the highlights and the midtones up in that face. Now for eyes, she's wearing sunglasses, so I can't really do anything, but you can just focus on the eyes. Now, why would I do this? Really all this is it's substituting all the time you'd have to spend painting with a paintbrush in Lightroom or Photoshop to select a certain area or do a clipping mask and then edit. Clicking on lips, I mean, this is crazy. I kind of feel like I'm building a Sims character here. I can adjust the lip saturation on the image. You can see if I increase that, there's more pink and magenta tones in the lips. That's pretty wild. Now, this is something that I personally will not do, but I just want to show you. You can slim the face. I'm all about embracing who you are naturally. I'm not going to get into a whole thing. Just know that I don't personally do this, but I want to show it to you anyway. It's very dramatic. If you can see here, kind of what I think it's kind of doing is essentially using like a warp tool to just kind of pinch the head and make it a little bit smaller. Here's the face regularly, here's the face thin. I don't know if it really makes that much of a difference. I'm just really not for changing body shapes. While we're here, let's go ahead and play around with the skin. So interesting, I'm gonna click on skin defects removal and see what happens. Okay. Did you notice that? I'm gonna unclick it really quick. Brittany, who's in this photo, is my wife. She has a distinct mole on her upper lip here, which I think is very cute and a very distinguishing feature of hers. So again, I would never remove it. Personally, I like it. I think it's a good feature. But if you're in an editorial situation where they need just really nothing distracting because you're trying to show off jewelry or fashion or makeup, you might need to use this. So all you have to do is click skin defects removal and it takes them all away. I don't like that they use the word defect. Call it beauty mark removal because it's beautiful. For this last segment, what I want to do is I just want to take a photo that's raw. I've not done any edits to this photo specifically, and I want to bring you through the process like I would with other editing softwares, just to give you an example of how I can utilize AI, how I can get a photo to look exactly the way I want it to look while using Luminar Neo. So first things first is I'm gonna look at my HSL. I'm gonna click these two buttons here on my histogram. What that does is shows me in my image where my highlights are peaking and my blacks are too black, essentially where there is no data in my image. So why would I do that? Well, I can go to my Essentials tab here, click on Develop, and I can begin to adjust my exposures and all the things I would normally do in any other photo editing app. This is just the process that I work with. So the first thing that I like to do is I like to go to Curves, which again, Luminar Neo has. I'm gonna make a simple S-curve here just to kind of give myself a good launching off point, and I'm gonna go ahead and unclick those highlights and shadows to get a better view of my image. From here, I'm gonna pull my highlights down to see if I can recover some of that light. I don't think I'm gonna be able to recover anything from that opening in the plane, and I'm gonna bump my shadows up just a little bit more. Okay, I'm gonna skip smart contrast for now, and I'm gonna move on to blacks and whites. Blacks and whites, I'm gonna lift my blacks just a little bit here. I'm gonna pull my whites down just a little bit as well. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to color. I'm gonna pull the saturation down. I know it's already desaturated. I'm gonna pull the vibrance up a little bit. I did pull that down just a little too far. Hold on, let's bring that back to about -7, and I'm gonna pull my vibrance up to about 25. And I'm gonna make this a cooler image. I think that that plays well with the image we have here. And so once I've kind of done some like really base corrections, I'm gonna just adjust until I feel really good about the photo. Next thing I want to do is I want to go down to this creative tab here. I've got a base exposure, right? And I want to see what I can do with Luminar Neo and see how it really allows me to be creative with my photos. So I'm going to play with this relight option here, and I'm actually going to pull the brightness down further away, and I'm going to pop it up closer just to see the dynamics. I'm just going to check here to see how it looks. Okay, there's before and there's after, simply clicking on that eyeball there, and it shows that I'm adding some dynamics now to the image. Next, I'm gonna play with this atmosphere tab here. It's powered by AI, and I guess what this is gonna do is add a little texture to my image. So it's set to fog. Let's go ahead and just crank it up. I'm gonna crank it up all the way just to see what happens, see if anything is noticeable. Okay, weird. What did it do there? If you look at my histogram, it looks like it's just kind of spreading my midtones out, which is kind of strange. Let's see. What's layered fog? Is it changing anything on her face? I think that's the main question. Nope. Okay, so maybe atmosphere isn't right for this photo, and that's also a part of the process here. AI is not going to be the one-stop shop that solves every photo's problem and makes every photo absolutely majestic. AI as a tool, though, can be used to help you bring your photos to the next level. So let's keep playing. I'm gonna click on dramatic here and see what dramatic does. Okay, so it looks like dramatic is playing with some of the saturation in the face, some of the contrast in the image. I'm gonna bump that contrast up a little bit. Okay, looking dramatic, but her face is a little desaturated, so I might be able to go back and fix that. Let's click on mood. Oh, okay, interesting. So mood is essentially your LUTs, your presets. Choose LUT, cinematic toning. Oh, cool, it actually shows me a live view here as I go over each one. Let's go ahead and choose Santa Barbara. That's kind of crazy. Here's the before image, and here's the after. And that's just with base corrections and now utilizing some of their creative tools. I can increase the amount on this, that's way too much. Let's go ahead and just do a simple 30, and I'm gonna go ahead and drop the saturation down by just -5 because I don't want it to be too much. And I'm gonna lower that contrast by 15. Next up, I'm gonna play with toning. Toning is what I'm assuming is split toning, which is essentially assigning colors to your highlights or your shadows. Let's play with this. I want a little blue in my highlight. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop my saturation back down because that looks absolutely insane. And for my shadows, let's go ahead and crank the saturation up again. Let's add just a little bit of warmth, orangish red in my shadows. And I'm gonna drag my saturation down. Just going down the list here at this point, let's look at matte. Matte essentially is if I were to take my HSL sliders, take my blacks and my shadows, and lift up the very end so that there is none. If we want to give this that weather dramatic look, I think it's worth it. Again, you can change so much. I'm not going to go into all of these details, but it's wild what you can do. I actually don't mind that matte. The thing is with that, I could have done that in my tone curve, but it's nice to know that I don't have to worry about that. I can just kind of bump it around and play with it. You can see what it's doing in the background. It's lifting those blacks and those shadows. Last but not least, in this creative tab is film grain. We love film grain. So the way that I check for film grain is I go ahead and zoom in first on my image. Now, looking at her face and looking at the background, I can have a better view as to how my grain is going to look. Here you see two slider size and roughness, but let's go ahead and just increase the amount first. Okay, obviously that's way too much, but I just wanted to show you what you can do. And just like any photo editing software, you can increase the size. You can make the roughness crazy. I mean, that looks horrible. You wouldn't ever want to do that, but let's go ahead and bring down the size, the roughness, and the amount just a little bit here. You may be asking me, Pooch, why would you ever add film grain to a crisp digital image? I get it, that's kind of strange, but here's why I do it. This particular photo, I think, benefits from it. This is a travel photo. We were out in the wilderness, so I want things to feel a little bit more rustic, a little bit more rugged. I'm not gonna put film grain on a super crisp, beautiful product shoot for Apple. That doesn't make much sense. Now, I went ahead and did a couple more things to this photo, but one thing I think is so important to show you before we wrap this up is, remember earlier how I mentioned in traditional photo editing workflows, you do your base edits in Lightroom, you kick it over to Photoshop to do some really nice professional adjustments and changes, and then you kick it back over to Lightroom. Well, check this out. Luminar has dodge and burn built into it. That is huge. I wish Lightroom had that. I literally take a brush tool in Lightroom, I paint. I make one of them my dodge, I make one of them my burn. With this, you don't have to do that. I've been excited about all of this so far. I've actually had a ton of fun editing this photo in Luminar, but this might just take the cake for me in regard to saving time and having fun creating images in one platform. And maybe I want to bring some of those shadows out of her face. Okay, that's a little bit too intense. Undo that, bring down the strength. Add some more here. And again, we're just lightening up the shadows on her face. Boom, boom, darken. I'm just going to hit this highlight on her jacket, and I'm going to hit over here a little bit to kind of make the jacket less of an important piece to the puzzle. Dodging and burning is great for very specific changes that you want. If I were just to select the face and bring the brightness up in the face, it would increase the whole face. I didn't want to increase the parts of the face that were already bright. I only wanted to increase the parts that were in shadow. So there you have it. A couple features that I'm really excited about, and also a complete rundown of editing a photo from start to finish in Luminar Neo. That's going, hold on, that's gotta go on Instagram. Give me a second. A lot of times as creatives, we have an idea in our head or we have an image in our mind that we want to make through photography, but we can't always do it. Or we run into just unavoidable issues like bad weather or blurry images or just things that we cannot fix. Tools like Luminar Neo are helping us solve those problems in post. I know the meme has been like, fix it in post, and then all of us photographers are like, no, get it right on the front end, make everyone's lives easier. And yes, that is still true, but sometimes you're out and about and you just want to create. You can't wait for the perfect weather conditions. You can't always nail it 100%, and this is where tools like this come into play. So if you were to ask me, like, will I genuinely use this in a day-to-day scenario? The answer is yes, especially if I'm making photos in a more casual setting, street photography, trips, things like that. I will probably put them into Luminar Neo before I start bringing them into Lightroom, which is genuinely crazy to me. But I mean, it didn't take me that long to create an image that I'm really happy with. And a lot of the things that I would do normally, I saved time doing them with Luminar. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that it maybe inspired you to utilize tools like Luminar Neo. They do offer a free trial, but like I said, we've partnered up together and have created a link for you specifically. Use code POOCH at checkout. It's gonna be here in the video. It's gonna be down in the description as well. Please use that because that actually helps me out as well, and it keeps me having a great relationship with people like Luminar Neo, who I think are genuinely trying to help the everyday creator take their skills, take their ideas, take their dreams to the next level. I'm all for that. I'm not about gatekeeping. I'm about utilizing the tools that we have to make some of the best things possible. So with that being said, I hope that you check it out. All right, that's all there is to it. I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Woo! AI is gonna take over the world. Oh, I gotta post this photo. I got so distracted making this video, I completely forgot to do it. Let's see if people like it. All right, peace.